all organized by their agency. And so it's all controlled. The paparazzi know exactly where all these different celebrities are going to be at what time. And so they know to get all their cameras set up and get ready. And so when they actually get there, they are flashed like, it's crazy. It's like strobe lighting, which you see triggering, you know, people with epilepsy into fits. It's that kind of thing. It creates dissociation. And it's been known to do that for ages. It's not really that controversial. Flashing lights, strobe lights do trigger altered states and dissociation.
Absolutely.
But I do think that's a factor in controlling these celebrities, because it's important to keep these slaves dissociative so they can be easily programmed and handled.
It's a really, really interesting perspective. And again, I can even sometimes, when you see that type of footage of someone, you know, having the flash of the cameras going off, and again, it's like 5,000 cameras around, like flashing,
exactly.
you know. I even get dizzy, like, just watching it, like, ooh, you know, how must it be to be in the center of that, you know?
I think it's more, I think it's more lucky that they don't break. If they weren't under mind control, then they probably would break down a lot quicker than people like Brittany have done because of all these flashing lights and everything. But because they are so used to going through dissociation, they all seem to like sort of take it in their stride. But I do think it is part of keeping them all dissociative.
And I'm thinking back of I mean, I remember when Princess Di was murdered.
Paparazzi were involved.
Paparazzi, same story there, you know.
Yeah, and if you think about just the word paparazzi, it's got papa, which, you know, incest abuse is usually really often involved.
Yeah.
And it's usually the father abusing the daughter or something. So the fact that it's got paparazzi, papa in it, and it's also got Zo in it, Oz at the end, because that's a singular of paparazzi. I just find it interesting that it's got both these kind of things loosely connected to mind control in it as well, in the actual physical word. And the fact that they killed this, who to me is another obvious victim, Princess Diana.
Yes.
Just really, and when you see some of the videos of that going through the tunnel, and also some of the theories about how she may have been assassinated. Like, I think one of the main was a really bright light flashing the driver. The driver,
yeah.
Which is more flashing lights. Why is there so much flashing lights going on around here?
Yeah.
I mean, there does seem to be that kind of theme going on.
Absolutely. We can talk about some other people here. I know that you've written recently also about, John Benet Ramsey, for instance. And in these cases, we're talking about people who are at an early age murdered in some kind of either ritual or... obviously accidents do happen, but in these cases, there's too much weird stuff going on.
It could be an accident in terms of her actually being programmed to do a certain either sex program or something. Because one commenter on my blog suggested that maybe because she was strangled, they were doing some kind of erotic asphyxiation type programming on her to make her, more susceptible to that for the perverse politicians and stuff who are into that. It could have been an accident, but just during really kind of messed up, fucked up kind of programming stuff.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not necessarily sure it was like definitely a ritual killing or anything. I think that the other theory I was just talking about is probably more likely.
Yeah, and again, there's so much stuff going on around it, and again, just the fact that they're, beauty pageant, participating in all these, basically a little kid, a child, right? But
there's little 7-year-olds or 6-year-olds and stuff. It's really sad that these things are even allowed to go on, I think.
Yeah.
That these parents are allowed to, it really is child abuse, even if they're not literally kind of abusing them physically.
There we go.
This kind of total control over their child's life is a form of mind control. Because everything that they do is exactly what their mum, what their mum is trying to make them into this little showgirl.
Well, exactly. Dress up.
Based off people like Brittany and everything.
Exactly. Dress up in this way, and even behave in this way. Your body is supposed to move in this way to even look more adult, or look look sexy, look like this.
You have to stand in this exact pose, even if it really hurts you or something.
Then we have other people. We talked with Todd Campbell recently about Heath Ledger. We have people like River Phoenix, who dies in some kind of what seems to be a drug overdose or something similar like that. Something happens to them.
Sorry, go on.
No, I just want to say that this is also seems to be another factor. This is commonplace, as it were. Either that's what is supposed to happen because they're meant to be some kind of, martyr or more, I don't know exactly for what reasons. It could be just the basic blood ritual of it all, the killing, the slaying of the hero mythology.
Yeah.
If we talk about it in that sense. But what do you think?
Well, for River Phoenix, I think it seems to me that he was remembering things. And what happens if they start to, if they're dissociative, if their memories, which are blocked up by amnesia walls, they're basically dissociated in their minds. If they start remembering the early abuse, then certain programs are triggered, whether it's a suicide program, which I think, or like a self-destructive kind of spiraling into self-destruction, which is exactly how he died with drugs and everything.
Yeah.
So I think it's because he claimed that he was abused by the religious cult, the Children of God.
Was that it? Okay, I didn't remember that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. He that's where he grew up, and he was starting to remember his abuse as a child at the hands of that sickening cult, which most cults are.
Yeah.
Obviously. And so eventually he spiraled down and died in the Viper Room, which was owned by Johnny Depp at the time.
Really?
Which is so there's lots of these connections which I do think are relevant.
Yeah, it's very it's very, very disgusting when you get into it, and then again we alluded previously to this.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So I was just going to say, you're right. It's really disgusting, and the fact that just evidence is enough for me that the fact that Disney keep making all these Alice in Wonderland programs, even though it's pretty well undisputed that Lewis Carroll is a big paedophile. Lewis Carroll was a big paedophile. I mean, that's not even his real name. That's probably like an alter personality of his. So, and because he was like a reverend or something like that. And so the fact that they're remaking this pedophile's work, which is obviously a pedophile's work, considering all the themes of like the little girl spiraling down into this alter reality and meeting all these older men who have strange things about them. But I just find it strange that Disney would keep making this. But once you understand why and what Disney is all about, how truly evil it is, then you know why. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, just think of the name there. Carol could be something alluding to the carousel. Lewis, of course, is light, or even Lucifer, actually, if you want to interpret it in the correct way.
I've seen lots of stuff on Lewis.
On Lewis.
It's a very symbolic name. His real name is Charles Lutwidge Dodgson.
Okay.
And he actually, I remember reading, I bought this opera on DVD for Alice in Wonderland from this Japanese lady, and it basically spells out that this is all about, child abuse, because at the very start it has these two giant orb floating creatures with big scary eyes who represent like the abuse of old people, and they have penises as their noses, and there's no dispute over what they are. They're obviously penises because they're penis shaped and they are penises, and they even erect and everything. And then the dissociation triggers as the opera singer falls down the stage into Wonderland after seeing the penises, as in the abuse, which triggers all this dissociation.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it's just that's evidence enough that something's very, very wrong at the top of society.
Do you have any more information on the fact that Lewis Carroll was a pedophile? Do you have any? Was he sentenced for that or anything like that?
No, but I posted one which I posted a Daily Mail article which basically said that. And if you know how Alice in Wonderland was concocted, it was done. Lewis Carroll had taken these little girls off with him on their little day trips, which I'm sure you can imagine what's really going on there. And this one girl called Alice apparently asked him to write this book with all these confusing dissociative themes in, which is obviously bollocks, but that's what they're saying. They're even saying that he came up with it when he was playing with all these little girls, which is kind of suggestive, I think, very much enough. And the fact that he was part of, a church, I think and he was in the army. I mean, army is pure programming through and through, is it not?
Yes,
and,
absolutely. Yeah.
And so, I mean, the army into religion, both the army and religion are essentially the same kind of things where they control the way you think. And so I think it's pretty obvious to me that he was either both mind controlled and an abuser, or just simply an abuser, but it's difficult to know which is which, really, as is always the way, because the abuser usually, sometimes becomes the abuser, because all this stuff is intergenerational.
Well, there you go. Exactly, just carries on, and the real question is, what's the origins of this? Because if you just play it out, obviously you always have a responsibility. But again, if your processes are unconscious and you don't, on one level, know what you're doing, are you really the one who blame? You know what I mean? It's very difficult there, actually.
Yeah, definitely. How do you know where? How do you know where does brainwashing end and your own free will start? It's difficult to judge, really.
I'm also thinking about another aspect to this that has to do with the disassociation with the, in a regular loving relationship between a father and a daughter, that it also creates almost a taboo there. Also, if you know what I mean, it can become weird and strange because, again, many people in society, they're aware of pedophilia. They know that, and this creates also a strange relationship now then between the father and the daughter, and that can also be a part of the game or the power game in that sense.
I think the fact that these people like Miley Cyrus, and there are some really kind of disturbing pictures with them together, and they look very kind of a little too close, and the fact that all these kind of abused kids basically by their own fathers are used in the media so much, it obviously would have that kind of effect.
Yeah.
I think subconsciously it will probably have a massive effect on the relationship between fathers and daughters.
So again, it's multi-layered. It's
yeah.
And again, we were being affected all the time, at least for those who are kind of paying attention on the level that they actually care what these people are doing. But again, it should definitely not be a yardstick for anyone, because it's a weird, obscure, behavior and relationship overall, what these people are doing, especially in Hollywood or the entertainment business or what have you. But and again, then there's more extreme cases. If we talk about other people, we briefly mentioned like Marilyn Manson before, about his former, I guess, or his ex or whatever. What's her name? Dita Von Teese or something?
Yeah, Dita Von Teese. That's not her real name either, though.
Okay.
I mean, all these people, like Miley Cyrus isn't her real name, really. Destiny Hope isn't exactly a name, but all these people, they sort of seem to have new names, which I sort of see as kind of mind control, symbolic of alter personalities, alter egos.
It's like they're not allowed to find a root because they're changing name all the time in a way.
Yeah, so that's an interesting thought, yeah.
Mm-hmm. But Dita, you've posted about her as well. She's also into the whole, whatever, bondage, sex scene crap of this aspect too. And I mean, what's your take on all that?
Well, I mean, there's no. It's pretty obvious that bondage and mind control are connected, just because when you're in bondage, your mind, you're essentially under control because you can't do anything. You're at the behest of the master. And so there's no real. So it's easy to see how people like Dita Von Teese, who are pretty clear victims to me, are used so much in the bondage industry just because they're so obviously connected.
Mm.
And you can look up little things like she did ballet and everything, which is quite a dissociative activity with all the spinning and the fact that you have to try really hard to get flexible, and flexibility is another factor of mind control, as they go through so many things and it basically makes them really, really flexible, which is why they use things like gymnastics. Because they're obviously, these victims, they'll be pushed into careers that are sort of that fit in with their programming. So they so that's obviously, if they're going to be extra flexible and stuff, it would make sense that they'd be a ballerina or they'd be a gymnast or anything else.
Mm.
And so, but yeah, Dita, she changed her name and she was pushed very early into these kind of controlled activities, and then she quite young really, she started stripping, and there's just so many different pictures of her with cats and everything, which again we'd have to go into detail on beta alters, which is basically the sexual side, which is obviously a massive